The grand hall of the Zalari royal court was full of light and silence. Silver walls shimmered with reflections from floating orbs above, and banners of two worlds, Earth and Zalara, hung side by side. It was a historic moment. After years of war between humans and the Zalari, both sides had agreed to a fragile peace meeting. Representatives from Earth stood in a formal line, generals, diplomats, and soldiers. Among them was the youngest member, a soldier named Kyle. Only 19 years old, Kyle had joined the peace mission as a junior guard. He had no voice, no importance in the talks. He was simply told to stand straight and watch. On the other side of the hall stood the Zalari royals, tall and graceful aliens with blue-purple skin and golden eyes. At the center of them stood Princess Sirea. She was dressed in silver armor that sparkled like stars, her long white hair braided with glowing threads. She was known to be cold, wise, and unshaken by emotion. The meeting began. Speeches were made. Promises were exchanged. Earth's ambassador spoke about peace. Zalari, nobles gave respectful nods. Everything was going smoothly. Then everything changed. Without warning, Princess Sirea stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it echoed through the hall like a command. "I choose him," she said, pointing across the hall. Everyone turned. Her finger was aimed directly at Kyle. A silence fell over the room. Kyle's heart pounded. He looked around, confused, wondering if she meant someone else. But her golden eyes were locked onto his. She walked forward slow and steady, her silver boots making soft clicks against the crystal floor. The Earth General stepped in. "Princess Sirea, may I ask what you mean?" She did not blink. "He will be mine." Gasps filled the air. Murmurs began between the Zalari and human sides. Was this a joke, a trick, or some kind of ancient tradition? Kyle's mouth went dry. He had trained for war, for defense, for orders, not for being selected like a prize. He felt like he was frozen in place. Sirea stood just a few feet from him now. She stared into his eyes. "You are the one I sensed," she said quietly so only he could hear. "You carry something rare. I do not yet understand it, but I must." Kyle didn't know how to respond. I'm just a soldier," he whispered. She gave the smallest smile. "Yes, and that is why this matters." Back at the Earth side, the ambassador stepped forward. "With respect, Princess, our soldier is not part of this negotiation. He cannot simply be taken." The Zalari nobles stepped forward, prepared to defend their princess, but she raised her hand. "No harm will come to him. I do not take anything. I request, as per ancient rite of the Zalari Accord, I may request one companion of heart during peace formation. The humans agreed to all terms. This is mine." The ambassador turned pale. He looked at the document again, realizing the clause was there, but no one thought it would ever be used. General Wallace walked over to Kyle and whispered, "It's your choice, son. But if you say no, we may lose everything we worked for." Kyle's stomach turned. He didn't want to be part of politics. He didn't want to be a symbol. But as he looked into Sirea's eyes, something strange happened. He didn't feel fear. He felt curiosity. What did she mean by rare? Why had she picked him? He nodded slowly. "I'll go," he said. And that was it. The princess turned and walked back to her people, and Kyle followed. The hall emptied soon after, with humans confused and divided. Some were angry. Some believed Kyle had been forced. Others thought he might be part of something greater. Kyle sat inside the alien ship that would take him to Zalara. He looked out the window at Earth growing smaller. He didn't know what waited for him on the other side, but he knew life would never be the same. In the reflection of the glass, he saw Sirea watching him from across the room. Not smiling, not frowning, just watching, as if studying something. Only she could see. And deep down, Kyle had a feeling she knew something even he didn't. something that would soon change both their worlds forever. Kyle sat quietly inside the Zalari ship. The walls were smooth and glowing with soft blue lines like rivers of light. Everything felt strange. The chair shaped itself to his body, and the air smelled clean, too clean. It didn't feel like Earth anymore. He looked around. Several Zalari guards stood near the doors, tall and silent. They didn't speak to him. They didn't even look at him. Kyle wasn't sure if they didn't trust him, or if this was just their way. Then she entered. Princess. Soraya walked into the chamber, calm and silent as always. She wore a long robe now, no armor, just soft white cloth with golden threads. She stopped in front of him and studied his face. "You're afraid," she said. Kyle blinked. "A little." "That is normal." He gave a small nod. "Why me? Why did you pick me out of everyone?" She tilted her head. "You are different. Your mind, your presence, it called to me." "That doesn't make sense." "Not yet," she said simply. Then she turned and sat across from him. "But you will understand soon." The ship began to move. The stars outside shifted as they entered hyperspace. The journey to Zalara had begun. When they landed, Kyle's mouth fell open. The Zalari capital was massive. Floating towers reached the sky. Parks hung in mid-air. Roads of light moved like rivers under flying ships. Everything was beautiful and alive. The planet glowed with colors Earth had never seen. Soraya led him into the palace. Inside it was quiet, with soft music playing from the walls. Kyle was given his own large room with a soft bed, food he had never tasted before, and clothes made of smooth, shining cloth. He felt like a guest, but not a free one. Guards followed him everywhere. Every time he stepped outside the room, they were there, kind but silent, watching. Later that evening, Soraya invited him to the royal garden. Strange plants glowed gently in the moonlight, and the air was warm and soft. "I don't feel free," Kyle said as they walked. "You are not a prisoner," Soraya replied. "You are under protection. Many do not understand why I brought you here. Do you understand?" She stopped walking. "I was born with a gift. I can sense threads of fate, rare moments where two lives meet and something important begins. When I saw you, that thread appeared." Kyle frowned. "So I'm just part of your vision?" "No. You are part of a choice," she said. "I see many possible futures, but this one, your future with mine, stood out. It burned the brightest." Kyle stayed quiet for a moment, then asked, "Is this some kind of test?" She smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but not just for you. For me as well." They sat near a small pond. Strange creatures swam through the water, changing color as they moved. "You, don't act like the other Zalari," Kyle said. "They all seem cold. Strict." "I was trained to hide emotions," Soraya said, "to lead without weakness. But I no longer believe emotions are weakness." Kyle looked at her. For the first time, he saw something real behind her calm mask. A spark of pain or perhaps loneliness. "Back home, I'm just another soldier," Kyle said softly. "No one ever pointed at me and said I was special." "Then perhaps," Soraya said, "you needed to come here to discover that you are." They sat in silence for a while. The night was quiet, peaceful, but it didn't last. The next day, as Kyle walked through the palace halls, he noticed the guards whispering. A Zalari noble passed him and gave a cold stare. Later, at lunch, he overheard two servants talking in low voices. "He's human. He doesn't belong here. She's risking everything for him." That night, Soraya called him to her private chamber. She looked troubled. "Some are angry," she said. "They believe I made a mistake, that I have gone too far." "Because of me?" "Yes. They see you as weak, as unworthy." Kyle stood straight. "I didn't ask to be chosen." "I know," she said. "And yet, you stayed. That is why they fear you?" He frowned. Fear me? Soraya walked closer. Because you are not like them. You are kind and strong in quiet ways. They don't understand that. So, they try to destroy what they don't understand. She reached out and placed a hand lightly over his heart. You have something inside you I cannot explain, but I feel it. I trust it. Kyle looked into her golden eyes. For the first time, he didn't feel small or lost. He felt seen. I won't run, he said. Not unless you want me to. I don't. That night, guards were doubled outside his room, and in the shadows of the palace, whispers grew louder. Not everyone wanted the princess and the human soldier to stand together. Some were ready to stop it, no matter the cost. Kyle woke early the next morning. He stood by the large window of his room, looking out at the Zalari city shimmering in the dawn. Though everything around him was beautiful, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He felt uneasy, like an outsider among people who did not want him there. A soft knock came from his door. He turned quickly, expecting the guards. Instead, Princess Soraya stepped inside quietly. She wore a simple robe of deep blue that matched her eyes. She looked calm, but Kyle saw worry hidden behind her careful expression. What's wrong? He asked softly. She hesitated, then spoke carefully. I need you to come with me. I have something to show you. Kyle nodded and followed her without another word. They walked silently down quiet hallways away from the eyes of guards and nobles. Soon they reached a large door made of dark crystal. Soraya placed her hand on it and it opened slowly with a soft glow. Inside was a grand chamber filled with ancient writings and holograms floating in the air. Kyle stepped inside carefully, looking around in amazement. What is this place? He asked. It's the Hall of Memories, Soraya explained. It holds the history of our people. Few are allowed here. She walked toward a large glowing stone in the center of the room and waved her hand over it. Instantly, images of wars, peace treaties, and royal ceremonies flashed around them. Kyle watched, trying to understand. I brought you here because I need you to see this, Soraya said, pointing to one particular image. Kyle looked closely. It showed an ancient Zalari king standing with someone clearly not Zalari but human. They shook hands and an intense energy surrounded them. Long ago, humans and Zalari were friends, Soraya explained quietly. But the connection was lost. Distrust and war separated our worlds. Kyle stared at her, understanding growing in his eyes. You want to rebuild that connection? Soraya nodded. But it's not so simple. There is something called a soul bond. It's rare, powerful, and only happens when two hearts and minds are perfectly aligned. Without it, peace cannot fully return. Kyle's heart skipped. And you think? Yes, when I first saw you, I felt it. It was as if my soul recognized yours instantly, she confessed. But I had to be certain. Kyle looked away, overwhelmed. I'm just a regular human. Nothing special. What could I possibly have to offer a princess? She gently touched his arm. You underestimate yourself, Kyle. Your strength isn't just physical, it's here. She pointed to his heart. And here. She touched his forehead. That is what makes you special. He took a deep breath, feeling hope mixed with fear. What if others don't accept this? Many won't, she admitted. But true change never comes easily. Suddenly the crystal doors opened again. Both turned sharply, alarmed. A tall, older Zalari stepped in. Kyle recognized him as Counselor Eldon, a powerful advisor. You should not be here, Princess, Eldon said sternly, his voice calm yet threatening. His eyes turned coldly to Kyle. And certainly not him. Eldon, Soraya said firmly, standing her ground. He deserves to know the truth. The counselor shook his head slowly. Humans cannot be trusted. They have betrayed us before. I will not allow history to repeat itself. Kyle felt anger rising inside him. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want peace. Eldon stepped forward, towering over Kyle. Peace built on weakness cannot last. Humans are emotional, reckless. You will ruin our world. Soraya moved between them quickly. Enough. Kyle is my chosen companion. I trust him. Eldon narrowed his eyes. You are blinded by emotion, Princess. I will protect our people, even from you. With that warning, he turned and left, the door closing firmly behind him. Soraya's shoulders dropped slightly. He will gather others against us. Kyle took her hand gently. Then we must prove him wrong. Later that evening, Kyle trained in a quiet courtyard, practicing moves to clear his mind. He didn't notice the shadow moving closer until it was too late. Someone lunged from behind, trying to grab him. Kyle quickly spun, blocking the attacker's hands and knocking them away. Who are you? Kyle demanded. The attacker, hidden by a hood, drew a small blade. You threaten our peace, he hissed angrily. Kyle dodged swiftly, managing to knock the blade away. Guards finally rushed in, pulling the attacker down and holding him firmly. Soraya arrived moments later, breathless with worry. Kyle, are you hurt? No, Kyle said, shaken but uninjured. He looked at the captured attacker. Why? The attacker stared angrily. Humans have no place here. You bring ruin to our princess. Soraya shook her head sadly. You are wrong. He is here to help us. Kyle watched the attacker being taken away. He turned to Soraya. They truly hate me. Not all, she said softly. Some fear change, but many desire it. You must not lose hope. He met her eyes and saw trust and strength. I won't. But in his heart, Kyle knew things were far from safe. A deep secret and powerful enemies hid in the shadows of Zalara. Together, he and Soraya would need strength greater than either imagined, because the hardest battles were yet to come. The attack on Kyle spread quickly through the palace. Guards doubled their watch, whispers filled the halls, and tension grew heavier. Kyle could feel eyes everywhere he went. But despite it all, he decided he wouldn't hide. He continued training, openly, meeting every gaze with quiet confidence. He knew fear would only encourage those who doubted him. And more importantly, he wanted to show Soraya that he was not afraid. Days passed, and Kyle slowly became familiar with Zalari ways. He learned their customs, their respectful greetings, and even their language. His efforts impressed some nobles, but others still looked at him coldly. One afternoon, as Kyle stood alone on a balcony staring at the sprawling Zalari capital, Soraya quietly joined him. You're brave, she said gently. He smiled faintly. Just doing my best to survive. No, she insisted softly. You're choosing to stand strong. You could have asked your people to take you home, but you didn't. Kyle turned toward her. Because I believe peace is possible. I believe in your vision, Soraya. Not just for your people, but for mine too. She looked at him gratefully, warmth filling her golden eyes. Thank you, Kyle. Their quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps. A messenger approached quickly, bowing respectfully to the princess. Princess, an Earth delegation has arrived unexpectedly. They request to speak with you and the human soldier immediately. Soraya exchanged a worried glance with Kyle. Very well. Prepare the meeting hall. Kyle felt nervous as he entered the meeting hall. The human representatives stood waiting, faces stern. Among them was General Wallace, the man who had led Kyle's squad. Wallace stepped forward. Kyle, it's good to see you safe. Kyle nodded respectfully. Thank you, sir. Wallace turned to Soraya. Princess, we've heard troubling reports of threats against our soldier. We are here to bring Kyle home. Soraya remained calm. Kyle's safety is my responsibility. I assure you, everything is being done. The general's voice hardened, slightly. With respect, Princess, this is no longer negotiable. Kyle should return with us. Kyle felt a sudden surge of emotion. Everyone was deciding his fate without asking him. He stepped forward. No, General, he said clearly. I choose to stay. Wallace looked stunned. Kyle, you don't understand. You're in danger here. Kyle nodded firmly. I understand perfectly, but running now would ruin everything we've worked for. If I leave, we might lose the chance for real peace. General Wallace frowned deeply. Son, you're just one soldier. It's not your responsibility. I disagree, sir, Kyle replied, calmly. This started because of me. It's now my duty. Saraya watched Kyle closely, admiration in her eyes. She stepped forward. Your soldier is brave. His courage honors both our worlds. Wallace sighed heavily, seeing Kyle's determination. Very well, but we'll be staying nearby. If anything happens, we'll act swiftly. That evening, Kyle and Saraya stood alone in the royal gardens again. Night had fallen softly, and the glowing plants lit the path gently. I can't believe. You refused to leave, Saraya whispered. Kyle smiled warmly. Why are you surprised? I meant what I said. I trust your vision. Saraya took a deep breath, emotions clear on her face. You've changed everything, Kyle. I didn't expect to feel so strongly. Neither did I, Kyle admitted softly. But here we are. Their quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps again. This time, guards rushed forward urgently. Princess, the council demands your presence. Immediately, one guard said quickly. Why? Saraya asked sharply. They claim you violated tradition by allowing humans unrestricted access. Eldon is leading this. Kyle felt dread twist inside him. Eldon was determined to break their bond, no matter the cost. In the council chamber, angry nobles argued loudly. Eldon stood at the center, his voice powerful and accusing. Princess, you have gone too far. Eldon declared harshly. You risk our culture by bonding yourself to a human. I seek peace, Eldon, Saraya replied clearly. You refuse to see beyond fear. I see clearly, Eldon shouted back. Humans bring chaos, your feelings cloud your judgment. Suddenly the chamber doors opened again and Kyle entered. Eldon glared with contempt. You dare enter here, human? Kyle ignored Eldon's anger, standing straight and calm. I'm here because you misunderstand. I respect your people. I chose peace, not conflict. You are not welcome, Eldon snapped. Kyle stepped closer, his voice steady. Maybe not by you, but many Zalari I've met want harmony between our worlds. I believe we can learn from each other, but only if we choose understanding over fear. Murmurs rose in the chamber. Some nobles nodded thoughtfully. Others whispered doubtfully. Eldon narrowed his eyes dangerously. Words mean nothing. Can you prove this belief, human? Yes, Kyle said firmly. I will take your trials. If I pass, will you accept me? Saraya gasped softly. The Zalari trials were brutal, testing strength, courage, and wisdom. Few Zalari had ever passed them all, let alone a human. Eldon smiled coldly. Very well, but if you fail, you will leave Zalara forever. Agreed? Kyle stood firm. Agreed. Saraya watched him with worried admiration. He had risked everything to prove himself. Then let the trials begin, Eldon announced, confident Kyle would fail. Kyle took a steady breath, determined not to let Saraya down. He knew this was his moment. He would show them all what humans could truly achieve. Kyle stood silently at the entrance of the great Zalari arena. Thousands of Zalari watched from seats above, their eyes filled with curiosity and doubt. At the center sat Princess Saraya, calm but clearly tense, her golden eyes never leaving. Kyle. Eldon stood proudly beside her, confident Kyle would fail. The trials were legendary. Zalari warriors trained their entire lives to succeed. Kyle had barely days to prepare, but he refused to surrender to fear. He looked up, seeing Saraya's trusting eyes, and it gave him courage. Eldon raised a hand, calling for silence. Today, this human will attempt the sacred trials. Success means acceptance. Failure means exile from Zalara forever. The arena erupted with murmurs, but soon quieted again. Kyle stepped forward. He faced 3 trials: strength, courage, and wisdom. The first trial began immediately. Huge metal doors opened, and a large mechanical beast stepped into the arena. It roared loudly, shaking the ground beneath Kyle's feet. It was built to test strength. Kyle moved quickly, dodging heavy blows and carefully studying the machine's pattern. He realized he couldn't defeat it with strength alone. Instead, he waited for the perfect moment, using the machine's weight against itself. With perfect timing, Kyle jumped aside, causing the beast to stumble and fall heavily, breaking apart. The crowd gasped in surprise. The second trial tested courage. Kyle was led to a high tower. Eldon explained clearly, "You must cross this narrow bridge without hesitation. One wrong step means failure." Kyle looked at the thin bridge stretching over a great height. Wind whipped violently around him. He took a deep breath and stepped forward without looking down. Each step was calm and steady. Halfway across, the wind became stronger, nearly pushing him off. Kyle held steady, focusing only on the path ahead, determined to succeed. With courage and patience, he reached the other side safely. Now the crowd watched intently, beginning to whisper approval. The final trial was wisdom. Eldon asked Kyle 3 difficult questions about Zalari history and philosophy. Kyle answered carefully, using everything he learned during his short stay. He spoke with honesty and clear thought. With each correct answer, the crowd's respect grew stronger. When Kyle answered the final question correctly, silence filled the arena. Eldon's face became pale with disbelief. Princess Sireya stood, smiling warmly. "Kyle, you have passed the sacred trials. You have proven your worth. You belong among us." The crowd burst into applause, cheers echoing loudly through the arena. Kyle felt relief and joy flooding through him. Suddenly, a loud scream cut through the celebration. Guards rushed toward the princess's seating area. Kyle turned and saw Eldon lunging forward, a blade flashing dangerously in his hand, his eyes wild with anger. "No human shall rule beside a Zalari princess," Eldon shouted. Without hesitation, Kyle ran toward Sireya, desperate to reach her first. Eldon swung his blade, but Kyle threw himself forward, shielding Sireya. The blade struck his shoulder, causing sharp pain. "Kyle!" Sireya cried in horror, holding him as he sank to the ground. Guards quickly restrained Eldon, pulling him away. Kyle lay on the floor, breathing heavily, feeling the pain but knowing Sireya was safe. Sireya gently touched his wound, tears forming in her eyes. "Why did you do that, Kyle?" Kyle managed a weak smile. "Because you're worth protecting, because peace is worth protecting." Suddenly, something incredible happened. A soft light formed between them, swirling gently around their bodies. Kyle felt warmth spreading through him, healing his injury instantly. The energy grew stronger, visible to everyone watching. Elders stepped forward in awe. "The soul bond," one whispered. "It's true, they are connected." Sireya smiled, gently looking into Kyle's eyes. "You truly are mine." Kyle smiled warmly back. "And you're mine." The next day, a formal ceremony was held. Humans and Zalari gathered together, witnessing history unfold. Kyle and Sireya stood side by side, representing unity and trust between 2 worlds. Eldon and those loyal to him were removed from power. Zalari nobles now understood humans could be friends, allies, even family. General Wallace and the human delegation watched proudly. Wallace nodded approvingly at Kyle. He had done far more than anyone had ever expected. From that day forward, Kyle was no longer seen as just a human soldier. He became a symbol of peace, of courage, and of hope. He stood proudly beside Princess Sireya, both determined to lead their people into a future filled with understanding and cooperation. That evening, Kyle and Sireya stood quietly in their favorite garden. Stars glittered above, peaceful and endless. "You've changed everything," Sireya whispered softly. "For me, for Zalara, and for Earth." Kyle smiled gently, taking her hand. "No, we changed it together." She leaned closer, her golden eyes soft and happy. "You were right, Kyle. True strength is not just here." She touched his arm lightly. "But here." She placed her hand on his heart. Kyle squeezed her hand gently. "And we will always remember that." As they stood together under the stars, Kyle knew his life had forever changed. He was no longer a simple soldier. He had found his place not just among the Zalari but beside the person who saw his true worth. And together, they would build a new future, one built on trust, courage, and love.